Okay, so just returning to gravity. And just feeling that sort of rubbery springiness of the legs. Mind in down chin. Yeah, so what we have to try and feel is the rising energy as we load the leg. So as I sink into the leg, there's like a lift that rises up. We just want to become aware of that. So that lift has a very different mood than the mood of the sinking. And if you can't feel it, then just pretend you can. Imagine it. So what the teacher does is basically tell you what you should be feeling if you were just a little bit more relaxed. And so by inducing that, by imagining it, it will speed up the process of relaxation. So this is the idea. So I sink into the leg and something is pressing up. You can think of it as just like that sort of expanding strength of the leg to hold yourself, or you can see it as energy that's flowing up from the ground. It doesn't really matter. And just, how high it comes is just a function of your cheerfulness, your general mood. And when I have a light mood, then that allows the energy from the ground to come all the way up above my head. When I'm in a grumpy mood or a stubborn mood, that basically just keeps the rising energy down. So the important thing is to keep the energies separate. Just feel them all operating together. So I have to be partly with the sinking, partly with the rising. So the leg is like a spring. So just remember what that word means. It's not just a coiled spring, it's the season. And the hole in the ground from which water comes. So as I sink into the foot, it's like it's opening a hole and then the water can gush up. Now just remember, we don't concentrate too fiercely. We set something up and then we just do it. I almost go into a daydream and then just see how the body shifts, because normally the mind will actually hold you back. The mind will prevent the body from operating its own wisdom, which is always of a superior quality than the mind's. Yeah, so in a physical sense, you're these two contracting and expanding legs, but in an energetic sense, you're billowing and there's this real cloud that you're generating. And then just switch the attention to the other leg. So to the leg that's straightening. So that's a bit like a tentacle. So as I bring my weight here, this is expanding like the octopus's tentacle to reach out. And then it's as though it just touches the ground and pulls in. Yeah. So you've got one leg that's contracting like a spring and then expanding, and the other leg that's expanding like a piece of elastic and then pulling back. Yeah, so as this leg is getting all scrunched up, this leg is really expanding, especially here. I want the feeling that you're just letting go at the hip, and then it will pull back. The same, if I put my weight in the leg and I want to move out, what I actually do is I sink down into it a little bit, yeah, to throw myself back. It's the same here. If I want this leg to pull me back, I have to stretch it even more, and then it will pull back. So this feeling that I'm letting go here, and then that's what enables the foot to grab the ground. And again, just feel the mood. So here, it's the beginning of the operation of this leg that is the expansion that then continues into a gathering. So on the previous one, it was a compression which became an explosion. Yeah, so when you're pulling with the leg, it's much more useful for dealing with the world, dealing gently and carefully with the world you're in. Because you're really listening at that moment of really expanding. That's when you're gathering most information. And just feel the tentacle. It comes out of your back because it's of energy. So I turn away from this foot in order to extend it. And then as I'm drawn into it, I'm pulled towards it. Yeah, so it's just a really subtle and gentle way of dealing with the world. You don't face it full on to start with, because that would be just a little bit too much, too coarse. You approach it almost sideways. And then once you've made that connection, you can just gently just draw yourself towards it. And then we just want to feel both working together. So one leg is a spring, one leg is a stretchy piece of elastic. But both really having to listen to each other so that this, my dantian area, is stable as it's moving from foot to foot. Yeah, so you're very much two creatures, yeah. One sort of physical and mundane, of the sort of natural world, and another one energetic. So the leg I'm sinking into, that's the sort of mundane world, and that allows the energy to open up the other side. And they're slipping all the time from one to the other. And it's that gives human beings their beauty, that mysteriousness. Yeah, so when you see a human being, especially when they're they're just relaxing, yeah. And it's almost like they're like a wound, yeah? They're like a slash in the fabric of reality. It's like there's some special energy just oozing out from this other dimension through them. Yeah, nothing else in nature quite has it. Yeah, so when is that beauty most intense? It's when you're aware and when you're listening. Okay, now let's just bring it to riding horse. So just feel the legs. They've got this real sort of spring in them. You don't want the feeling that they've become solid. They're of energy, they're of flow. So feel your processes, the breathing, the heartbeat, even the digestion, like just having their own rhythms and affecting this machine. It's gyrating almost your body. I remember when I was a kid, one of the phrases I'd often hear from my mother, especially. With my father, it was generally just a clout. Yeah? But my mother would generally warn us she'd say, for God's sake, be quiet. I can't hear myself think. Yeah? And so we don't realize it, but when we think, we actually suppress so much activity that is there just coloring the situation. And so when this becomes quieter, then it's like they're all like little creatures. They can all come out and play. They're normally scarper as soon as you start thinking, because you're being coarse and selfish. So thinking to yourself is the ultimate selfish act. Because what you could be giving, you're now holding back. Yeah. And you can feel it as a teacher, when I'm working with someone, you always know when their mind starts wandering, and it's like an insult. Yeah? They've left you alone. Yeah? Okay, now let's just turn it. Yes, and now Dantian is the center, and you are revolving around it. You're trying your best not to let the Dantian move side to side too much, and just really turn as far as you can. And just feel it. When you turn it further than you're inclined to, this will tilt a bit. So we just want to venture into that area so that we can slowly learn how to keep it level when we're in a space of uncertainty for ourselves. Yeah, so the important thing with the work is that you're always pushing yourself into places you don't want to go. Otherwise, you get stuck. Just be aware of the world just passing you by. Yeah, so what are you aware of now? Not so much of the objects, because they've just become a blur. You're just aware of the feeling of the air against your skin, and just that general feeling of centrifugal expansion. It's really enjoyable, like being on a swing. So your flesh is being thrown out, and as it is, it relaxes. And then just bring your mind to the contrary of that, which is the contracting into the Dantian. So there you've got those two. One, this sort of blissful expansion away from your center, and another, this sort of ruthless, detached contraction into the center. Again, two different parts of your mind. Quite possible for them to be there at the same time. And then just bring your mind to the hands. Yeah. just feel how the hand that's disappearing behind you, how it feels different once it's out of your vision. Once you can't see it, it's gone into the darkness effectively. So just feel it changes. You know, so our eyes color everything, unfortunately. Yeah, so we'd just like to become aware of the presence that is not visible. Okay, and now let's just bring it back to riding horse. Again, with the feeling that the Dantian is the center on this line. Yeah, so this is forwards, yeah, the way we've been working on it the last couple of months. Yeah, so the most important thing, so it all begins really when the upper and the lower body become one. So this feeling that your lower spine, sacrum and coccyx and the lumbar spine has just melted into the legs rather than being this S that's sitting on top of the legs. So I want the feeling that my two energy legs, my two tentacles are stemming from the sacrum and reaching down the legs. Yeah, so this is how we would like to be erect, to be standing up straight. Yeah, so rather than being two legs that are pushing a sacrum up and then me having to rear back to face front, I'm actually relaxing the sacrum down into the legs, the back of the legs. And as soon as you do that, you just become energetic, yeah? So your energy is flowing down, energy from the ground is flowing up. So you become a site of energy rather than this sort of locked, frozen, forceful object. Okay, and now let's just breathe it. And then just start breathing through the small hole in the mouth, just to make it more difficult. So here, you need to use the muscles in the belly as well as the diaphragm to suck the air in. And then here you again use the muscles in the belly to squeeze the air out. And all the time, just trying to relax into the legs. Yeah, so with each breath, when you're breathing through the small hole, you're gradually constructing the belt around the Danshan. And then just start turning with it a little bit. And again, just feel as though you're relaxing into the turn rather than imposing it. So I just, something relaxes and that makes me turn. So relaxation that just couldn't happen whilst I was facing front. So you relax into asymmetry and you tense into symmetry. So how do you get round? I don't want to get round by really forcing it. I want to get round because this is expanding and relaxing, and that enables me to go further round. So to get more and more round, I have to relax more and more across my sacrum. And also in the hips, this needs to open so that I can let go of the leg, and this needs to sort of fold in. Again, like the hill. So here you're dropping down one side of the hill, and then you rise up the hill, and then you drop down the other side of the hill. And I come up the hill, not because I'm getting tense, but because the spring in the leg just has to release, or the piece of elastic in the other leg has to contract because it's so stretched. And so everything that we do has this feeling of being natural, and this feeling that it's happening because something in me has released and relaxed. Otherwise, whenever I do something from tension, I lose my root. I lose my infinite connection with the ground, this sense that something is flowing in and out all the time. And just feel the feet. Yeah, so the arms are operating like the handles of a bellows, bringing air in and out of the nose, but also they're bringing energy in and out of the feet. And then let's just bring it back to the front again, just a few more, but just feel it, it's wanting to sort of yin and yang all the time. So just feel the spine. The spine is operating, is whipping on this plane, yeah, and also on this twisting plane. Yeah, so when we do it for sort of a reasonable amount of time, like 5 or 10 minutes, then you just relax into it and it starts to get into the heart. Yeah. So it starts becoming like a heart expression. It's working on the heart. Yeah, so we'd like the energy just to be able to just flow through with no impediment. And the heart tends to be like a very private space, like an enclosure. We just want to open it up so the energy can just operate upon it and then just not get too emotional, too embroiled in what the heart is feeling. Yeah, so you should really be able to have a real intensity of feeling without getting emotional, without letting it stir you up and upset you. Okay, and now just let's bring it into this exercise. So this will really, this is yield and attack, obviously, yeah. So this one is nice because it really splits the front and the back. So my front is withdrawing and my back is expanding and exposing. Yeah, so this is how we want to be in Tai Chi. This is like our sort of natural resting state, is to have a withdrawn ego and energy that's just seeping into the world and listening. So the more I can withdraw into myself here, the more this is released. And I don't want to keep half an eye on the hand that's going out because I'll block it. My eyes and my mind, my front mind, my ego mind is completely with the side that's yielding. Yeah, so this is what's, one of the things that's difficult. What we're trying to do is switch to, instead of attacking with the ego, we're sort of coming into the world being led by my ego. I'm yielding with it and then coming into the world with my energy. Yeah, so just this feeling that the front centers, the three dantians at the front, are withdrawing, and the three centers at the back, the Min Meng and the back heart and the back of the head, are expanding out. And then you can just imagine wings, like wings of energy, from the shoulder blades, from the sacroiliacs, and from those points that we flick, when we do the flicking exercise. And then again, just try and get it coming from the turning. It's the turning. Just look at it, the beginning of the turn is the yield, is the drawing in. It's only at the end of the turn when your energy starts coming out of your back and coming forwards. So the yielding always happens first. If it doesn't, then what comes out is not energy, it's self. So I want the withdrawal of my ego to turn me. I suck everything in and it turns me. So gradually your front becomes so sort of contracted, you almost become like a hedgehog that's rolled into a ball. So you're all back because the front was really retreated and withdrawn. It says in the classics, doesn't it, sort of, hollow the chest and draw up the back. So this feeling that your back is being plucked up, pluck up the back. Yeah. It's difficult to understand that one. Maybe a mistranslation. Yeah, so the hackles on the back of your neck, they're sort of extending and danger in the air. So the smaller you can make the front, the more you can contract the front, the more the back will expand. So they're balanced. Okay, now let's just bring it back to riding horse. So just feel the posture. Yeah, so that's what I would call the Neanderthal posture. So this feeling that this is slightly back, more like hugging the tree, and your legs are really open here, yeah? And you're really attending to this space, yeah? So imagine you're hunting. Then basically your attention would generally be quite close because you'd be looking for signs that you could follow. It's only every now and then that you'd look up and try and see something in the distance, yeah? Yeah. So this is really enclosed. It's got like in a container, which is what, the riding horse arms are doing, and the legs. And then this is really reaching out as much to harmonize with nature, as to get things. You're not sending your energy out to gather. Yeah. You're just letting your energy out in order to harmonize with your environment, which is very difficult when we're in houses, when everything that we're surrounded by is man-made. Yeah. It's virtually impossible. So you just really need to get out and practice that. And you don't practice it as something that's, again, that you do in order to make something happen. It's just, if you do your own practice every day, then gradually you just become more of a Tai Chi person that has minimal ego and is just reaching out all the time, because you never know what this is doing. And then that is softness. Softness is just, basically having replaced the ego with energy. This energy is soft. So the more I intensify this posture, this sort of Neanderthal riding horse, so the more I contract my front and really expand my back out, the more I'll tend to come onto all fours, the more I'll become this quadruped, this hunting animal, like a wolf or a cat that's sneaking around. Okay, and now let's just bring it up. And now just lifting the knee. So just lift it in like 3 goes or 4 goes. So 1, 2, 3, and the final one, just bringing the knee slightly higher than the hip. Don't force it, because we'll just do a few. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4. Just imagine there's a thread with the puppet man. The puppet man is pulling your knee up. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that final pull, as the knee comes above the hip, allows your lower back to just relax that little bit more. And so I can sink and settle onto the supporting leg much better when my knee is pulled up as high as possible. So 1, 2, 3, 4. One, 2. So what makes it difficult is just we're just so complex. The big plaint of the beginner is, how do I concentrate on everything at the same time? Because you're giving them so much information. And basically, each thing needs to be worked on. And then every now and then the spirit will just come up and everything will just be beautifully coordinated and will just work so well. But that doesn't happen very often. So you just have to be really grateful when it does. The rest of the time, we're just struggling. But that's the nature of the work. So it says, I lift the knee, I get drawn down with the spine. Yeah. And again, just notice the subtle changes in how you feel, especially when you get into the final position of the knee being up. Yeah. In what way are you better able to interact with the world? Somehow the sinking that the rising knee induces just makes you less egoful. Okay, now let's just try. We just need a wall. You can use the ground if you like. We're not going to lean on the wall. We're just going to touch it, yeah? So basically, what we want to feel is how the arm changes when I place it on something, yeah? So I just put my hand, you can just be the fingertips, you just put your hand on the wall and just feel it and sort of allow the wall to come and rise through your arm. And just let it reach all the way to across the shoulder to the spine and then just filter down. Yeah, so you become like a tube that's energetically connecting the wall to the ground. And it will sort of happen anyway if you put your hand on the wall, but not very well. So we just need to have that mind that's just really listening and allowing. So when we touch something, it's not just us reaching a hand out and grabbing the thing or whatever. That thing really enters you. So when you reach for the apple and touch the apple, you become apple, yeah, for a moment. Yeah. So this is what we want to feel when I just place my hand. Whee. Yeah. So this is listening. Listening is like a negative touch. When I place my hand, it sucks something out of what it is I'm touching and brings it into my body for processing. And then I can connect that to the ground. Yeah. And then you just want to feel the line through the body. Now, what will tend to happen, the sacrum will tend to be back. And if you just bring it forwards a little bit, then the line through your body that the energy flows along is much more natural and simple. And so the energy will flow much more readily. So we just want to feel that. So something of me is seeping into the wall, almost like the wall is sort of, like in those science fiction movies where you put your hand on the wall and it just goes through. Yeah. So there's an element of that. I've entered the wall, but the wall is now streaming through me. And then just the other side. So just placing the hand. And you have to allow it, your mind has to allow it, give it permission. Because what we want the feelings to spark the imagination. Yeah. So so the feelings bring colors and shapes, and it's a whole world that opens up when you make a connection. Okay, back to the front. Yeah, so when you let yourself be touched, then you change, you become different. Yeah. And so that's what I mean by the imagination. It's basically you allowing your contact with the world to produce a world. So it's not just a world that you're seeing, a world is being produced inside you. Yeah. It's a bit like, the Impressionists, Monet and, Seurat and Pissarro, the really good ones. So they saw the world, but they saw it more as light rather than things. Yeah. So what they felt and saw and depicted in their paintings was the play of light, the shimmer. Yeah. And in the Israel Museum in Jerusalem, they have a few Pissarros, and they just hung them so well. So they catch the light coming in from the window, and they sparkle because all these different angled brushstrokes throw the light off differently. And I was really struck because I've never seen paintings so alive with so much movement in them, where the light was moving, not just the line. Yeah. And so, when you allow yourself to be touched, then you see things that aren't there, but they are there. Yeah. You see energy. Okay, now let's try the lifting the leg one again. So what we'd like to do now is just feel the 2 feet. I sink into one foot and I lift this foot up. So feel as soon as I pick the foot off the ground, the foot becomes different. Yeah. And then I just lift it. So this is just, I'm just spending a bit of time with just one foot on the ground. And then I just place it down. And I want to place it down as gently as I was touching the wall. And just feel as soon as I touch the ground, there's that flow. There's that movement. The ground is coming right up into my groin, up my spine, across my shoulders and into my arms. Yeah. And then I can slowly put the weight into it in such a way that is still there. Yeah. So the weight goes into the heel, but my toes are still gathering the energy here. And then this one can come up. And then place the toes and just feel the energy just surging up your body. Yeah. And if energy is coming up, then there must be some energy going the other way. Yeah. Because there's no movement ostensibly. And then slowly come into the foot and fill the heel. So your root is extending down the heel and the toes are just reaching into the ground, like these little minor roots. Yeah. And this one can come up. And again, just the leg is like an arm. You're touching the ground. Don't put the weight into it. Let it gather the energy. And then let that draw you into it. Whoa. Feel the heel filling up. And then let this one come up. And then again, just feel the ground. It should really spark you up. Sparkle. There's a sparkle to energy. One more. and then just bring it into attention. And just feel the movement. Yeah, so you're moving from foot to foot a little. You're turning a little. And there's also this sort of alternating flow up and down the body. Yeah, so it's almost like, you're just full of spirit. So spirit is like the energy that causes cell division, that causes the one to become two. Yeah? So this one Dan Chen, it sort of splits. It's like a cell that's slowly splitting into like two, but they're still joined. So it's very much like the figure of eight. And so there's these little figures of eights everywhere. So you get here, this splits into like a figure of eight, like around the hips. Yeah. And then each one of those cells splits into a figure of eight on the vertical plane. Yeah. So the whole system proliferates very quickly into this gyrating mass of movement that is just completely non-analyzable. Yeah. Yes, the spirit is like the animating force. It's the thing that makes things split and start moving. It's the energy that forces the yin and yang apart. Yeah. It's also the energy that keeps them together. Yeah. So you need both aspects of spirit, otherwise they'll just sort of, the black and the white will just become a grey mess. But of course, the black and white are moving so quickly that it looks grey anyway to our limited eyes. But when you quieten it down, instead of thinking, you just open up to all of this just massive movement that's going on inside your body. Each cell is gyrating with spirit. Okay, great. So let's finish.